Skyboxes are integral to 3D environments in video games. As the name implies, skyboxes are cubes with interfaces that project images, producing a seamless illusion of a sky. I wanted to learn how to create them myself, specifically using Blender, which is a free 3D modeling and animation software. My goal at the end of this is to create a skybox which represents this scene with Mitsuha looking at the comet in one of my favorite movies, Your Name. To accomplish this, I want to use Blender's texture painting system, which is basically painting the surface of a mesh. I had never tried texture painting, and I'm not good at digital art, so this could end terribly. My approach to this goal was the following. 1. I needed a way to paint these seamless textures that when mapped to a cube, replicates a sky or background. 2. I needed to render 6 of these textures, one for each face of the cube while still maintaining the seamless look. Now, on to step 1. I opened up Blender, created a base image texture to paint on, and started painting it. My first idea was to texture paint a cube, but that failed miserably because the seams were noticeable. Also, painting inside a cube felt like painting a room rather than painting the sky. I decided to texture paint the insides of a sphere instead, and it looked a lot better. It also felt like I was actually painting the sky. But I encountered an issue where painting one side would result in the opposite side also getting colored. The solution was just unwrapping the sphere using sphere projection. Here is the full setup for the sphere. Step 2. I needed a way to take pictures inside the sphere and make it look like a cube. Thankfully, this wasn't that difficult. If I can render an image with this camera in all 6 directions I need, I would get 6 textures which I can fold back into a cube. A camera in Blender is by default set to perspective, but that is not what I want, as rendering an image by perspective would end up with a distorted outcome since I'm rendering in a sphere. I used the panoramic mode instead, with a field of view of 90. Here's a quick red skybox I painted up while trying to figure out how to render the textures. I also made this space themed one and the regular skybox I showed earlier, but I don't have the recording for these. Now I need to take a render of these 6 camera rotations, and when I finally rendered them, my final product looks like this. I was learning the ThreeJS library at the time, so I used that to render these skyboxes outside of Blender. Unlike most modern game engines, to make a skybox in ThreeJS, I had to actually create a cube and texture the insides with each separate render. Here are my import statements. This function generates an array of materials that will be applied to the skybox mesh. I load the textures, flip the normals, and shade it smooth. Skybox index is which skybox I'm referencing, and I named all of my skyboxes with numbers. Since I have multiple skyboxes, I save a reference of all of them to an array. To create the skybox itself, I create a mesh that is 200 units wide, and I assign it a texture. And finally, I gave it a spin animation and camera controls, and now we have this. Not bad, minus my terrible painting skills. Now for the main part of this video, painting a skybox for Your Name. I chose this reference image as practice before I took a stab at actually painting this scene. I don't want to bore you with this crappy painting during this time lapse, which I ended up recording only the first half of the process. So I'll talk about this crazy method I just realized I can do after I finished recording and editing this video. If you use an image texture with transparency on another smaller sphere and set its blending mode to alpha blend and paint over it, you can have layers, which makes it a lot easier to paint stuff like clouds. Also, any other mesh or image texture used inside that sphere also pops up in the final render. If I had followed this approach, it would have been so much smoother making these skyboxes. And that basically wraps up this time lapse. This final result isn't that bad, but I know I could do better. The resolution is too low, which made it look pixelated, so I upped it to 4096 by 4096. I struggled a lot with the colors, which is expected. This practice really helped me understand how texture painting really worked. Now onto the main part of this video. So this is the final result. The comments are my favorite part. I'm pretty happy with the result, even though if there's a lot of flaws that can be noticed. Like the clouds are just blobs because I couldn't find a way to properly paint them. I'm not really experienced with anything art related too. I set up this scene in Blender. Here it is with lighting. And here's the full render. I couldn't get a good transparent image of Mitsuha, so that's why she's blurred in this picture. And here is the final thumbnail for this video. Thank you for watching. Oh, and next video will be about Terraria, so look out for my community posts. Okay, bye.